it's working. But if you want to scale to 100K and beyond, you might want to do it now. As you scale, things that are not a problem now will become problems. Who did you do sales for? If someone's like, I did, sales for like Russell Brunson, it's like, that'll be probably really good because they're gonna have a lot of context. If it's like, I did sales for, McDonald's drive-thru, it's like, that's probably nothing. If you're in a room with 10 business coaches and they all seem similar, how do you know which one to hire? Don't you want the person who has the most experience? Like, do you want a heart surgeon who's done for 15 years or 3 months? Only 15 years. Right. The reason people get confused on sales calls is they take 10 sales calls and everyone tells them they're the best. Well, no, they're the sales rep. What do you think they're gonna tell you? You need to create massive gaps, bro. It's like I'm the good guy, these are all the bad guys.
My name is Pablo. I'm from Costa Rica and I have a marketing agency where I service real estate investors and other business owners from different industries as well, but mostly focused on real estate investors. So I actually started off as a freelancer, I would say, like in freelancing websites and sites. One thing took me to another, and then I saw the marketing agency business model. Started buying a lot of courses, even failed a little bit at e-commerce, and then pivoted to the marketing agency business model. I think it's one of the best business models to start in your business career, honestly. So I think I saw an ad. Yeah, I saw an ad, and then he just inbound messaged me, or his seller team. So I would say right now I'm like, I wouldn't say stuck, but sort of at about 24K per month, fluctuating between 24K to 27K per month. And I want to understand like what's the path in order for me to scale to 50 and then to 100K per month. And that requires like the back end sales, how to perfect the product even more in the service, and how to scale everything with ads. And in between, I think I have a lot of self-limiting beliefs that prevent me to actually being able to scale the right way. Yeah.
All right. What's up, man?
Hey, Tanner.
How's it going, bro?
I'm doing good. Thank you. How about you?
Yeah, dude. Nice to meet you in the flesh.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Where'd you fly from?
Costa Rica.
Oh,
Costa Rica.
wow.
Yeah.
That's not, how far is that? Is that close?
2 hours from here.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's actually pretty
That's not that bad.
Yeah, I was telling them that I was here last October on the mastermind.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
cool, bro. Well, dude, awesome. I'm glad you're back. Let's dive in. Yeah.
Awesome.
You ready?
Let's
cool. So yeah, I don't know what they told you already, but I mean, I just want you to get out of this what you want. Mm-hmm. So obviously, I'll try to kind of lead it, but just whatever you want to get out of it. So I mean, start with where the business is at, and then what the goal is, and then we'll kind of backtrack.
Yeah, for sure. So right now I'm fluctuating anywhere between 24K to 27K per month.
Okay.
My service is a done-for-you agency service, and I service different industries, but mostly focusing on real estate investors. So I would say like I'm pretty good at the media buying side of the process. Like myself, I'm a media buyer, or at least consider myself a pretty good media buyer. And so I'm able to also service like different industries, but where I want to focus my prospecting is, niche down, and that's real estate investing, real estate investors.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and then what's the goal? Like, what do you want to get it to?
50K, that's like the short-term goal, and then to 100K.
Okay, so 50, 100. Okay, so it's done for you agency. Like when you say real estate, like what kind? Like a real estate investor?
Real estate investors.
And what do you do? You're bringing them properties, or what do you do for them?
Yes, correct. So yeah, off-market sellers. So I connect them with off-market motivated sellers.
So like wholesale.
Yeah. So actually, you had over here, and he basically has a little bit of a similar type of offer.
Okay, yeah, you're the second person to say that. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're running ads for real estate investors, and then what you do for them is you're basically running ads to bring them properties that they can go through.
Correct.
Okay. What's the price point?
So right now I have 2 price points, $1,500 per month at 3-month commitment. And if they want to have an ISA, which is basically a lead manager that is taking over their follow-up, that's essentially $1,000 extra, like a setter, essentially. Yeah, $1,000 extra per month. So $2,500 versus the $1,500
cool.
and a 3-month commitment.
And then do you use that same person for a lot of people or no?
Yes.
Okay.
That's just more efficient
Okay, what's your funnel look like?
So right now I've just started running ads like 3 months ago. So
How'd
like
you get clients before?
Organically and
How?
organically.
Like cold?
Instagram, yes.
Just like cold DMs.
But
Wow.
it was like extremely slow, honestly.
Oh yeah, I mean,
So
of course. But
right
that's,
now,
I mean, that's great. You can do it though.
right now I'm no longer doing it because I've just found like it's easier to get clients with ads. So right now my funnel is messenger ads, actually, IG DMs,
Okay.
IG DMs.
And then what?
And then
VSL?
Yeah, chat, and then the sales call. And
Do you have a VSL link that goes out, or is it literally
yeah, so I have it on my bio, and sometimes
so from here, hold on, let's back up. Yeah. So click the ad, go into the DM. Do you have a link that fires to the VSL, or it literally is just like you just talk to them?
Yeah, I talk to them. Correct.
There's no link.
So I've actually tested just sending them the link, but I've seen that the response rate was actually lower.
So, okay, so back up. So you used to do that, and just so I'm clear, like when I say that, like usually what that means is the first message. The first message will have the link, but then you'll still go in and talk to them. And what you're saying is you've done that, but you got less response than if you just have nothing.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Okay. I mean, if you tested it, but are you certain? Because that's the big thing.
Yes.
Because you're taking the chance away that they can book on their own.
For sure. Yes. I mean, based on this conversation, I definitely want to test it with an even bigger volume. But
you text me that. Text me, just say, ask team to test Messenger without VSL. I'm actually curious now if we did that. I don't know if that would work, but yeah, because that's what he's doing, which I find very interesting. Okay,
yes, because I've seen that, of course, they consume the content and they get nurtured as well.
But you're not, like, you feel like you don't get any more bookings.
No, this process works great, honestly. Like, I do get a really good response rate from the ads, like without even sending them the VSL, and I get a really good booking
No, that's
rate.
what I mean. So what I'm saying is, like, you've tested add to DM to the, so like, I mean, here's your two funnels.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
And you're testing this versus that, and you're saying this is better.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
I mean, that's at least for me.
Okay. All right. As long as you're sure, because that's the big thing is like, because when you take that out, it's just, you're taking out any like automation.
But once I have them on a call, they have to watch the VSL.
How?
I let them know, I get them booked, and then, hey, before the call, please watch this video.
Okay.
And then they get triggered
15
with
minute or hour?
15 minutes. 15
okay, so this call here's a 15.
No. Oh, yeah, so that's a triage call.
What about this one? Same?
Yes,
15?
that's a triage call.
Okay, any reason you don't go? Because I've had that, this seems to be the recurring theme in the agency world. I'm not sure why, but like, is there a reason you don't go straight to a 60?
I've just wasted a lot of time like with prospects that are not qualified. Maybe I could qualify them even harder on the...
Well, I mean, what I would do is like, and I've said this, I mean, this is the same convo I've had with every agency guy. So I'm assuming you guys must all be watching the same content because I keep seeing the same thing, which is fine. Like if it works, it's great. I don't give a what you do. It's just at the end of the day, if I run an ad to a DM, what I would like in a perfect world is I do a VSL with a link to book here. All right. That's the application and then a call. And so here's why I like it. If they click the ad and they go in, I can book a call from the DM. If they watch the VSL and book, I can book a call here. If they answer questions, I go back and I can re-clarify. Yeah. So again, at the end of the day, I'm assuming if you're doing 25K a month, you're not a so I will take your word for it, but just be aware like of the options you have. These are the options. I like this would be a 60-minute call. I don't love 15-minute only because it gets harder to scale because as you get bigger, the amount of volume you're gonna get goes up dramatically. So imagine right now, how many set calls you have in a month?
So in a month,
I get it on average, like 30, 60, 100.
Per week, like right now it's about like 20.
Okay, so like let's say you get to 100K, which is your goal. I mean, that's 80 to 100 set calls. That's a lot of calls. I mean, that's, you know, three, oh, I guess not. I mean, it's 3 a day. I mean, it's gonna be, it's probably not, well.
No, so I meant 5 per week on average. So that would be like.
Oh, 5 per week. Okay,
yeah,
so
like
it's not that
25
crazy.
calls.
Okay, so 25 calls a month.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah, so it won't be, okay, yeah, and like I said, that's fine. It's not as crazy as I thought, but just keep that in mind as you scale. Like, if you get to 200 or 300 or 400, it's like that will be an issue because you're gonna have to, I mean, you'd have to have full-time dude who just does that, which is fine, but it's just be aware of that. How much do you spend on ads per month?
So since June, I've been spending not even $1,200 per month, honestly, like on average 1,000 per month, honestly. Okay,
so in a month, just so I'm clear, how much new revenue do you make off 1,000 ad spend?
So for instance, the last 2 months, I've been having like a 350 cost per acquisition.
So, okay, keep going,
yes,
sorry.
But that leads me to my next question. Like, it's been a little bit hard for me to scale that process on the ad side of the process because I've seen that like cost per message fluctuates a lot, and as well as the quality. So, and I'm not even spending that much, honestly.
But have you ever? I mean, you're not spending anything. What's your price point again? 1,500. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I've been like on and off
per month though. So this is per month. So technically it's 4,500 to 7,500, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So rule of thumb is this, dude. Your cost of acquisition can be 25% of the cost.
Okay.
So if we're doing this based off this one, your cost of acquisition can be 25% typically. So you're looking at around like 1,200 on the 45. Okay, so we'll do 1,200 CAC. On the 75, it's what, like, let's say 2 Gs, right? Okay. So rule number one is very simple. And I have this conversation all the time. If your cost of acquisition is 350, then you should spend until it's that, and then you can optimize. Because like you're saying, oh, it's not working that well, this and that. It's like your expectations are they're too high. Like it's going to get harder. You're also, as you spend more, it's going to get worse or whatever. So just keep in mind, you'll still make loads of money if you're under a 25% CAC, meaning like the total deal value, you want usually your cost of acquisition to be 25% or less.
Yeah.
You're way under that. I mean, if we look at this number, you're under 10%. I mean, it's like, that's crazy.
Yes.
So you should spend a lot more. Now, the only other way to scale, right? And again, I don't have a dog in the fight. So that's why I'm saying I don't care how you scale. I mean, I could care less. We do DM ads because those just seem to work better.
Yeah.
Okay. At the end of the day, if you could do ad to opt-in to, you know, like a VSL to a call, that's the best way to scale. Why? Because it's more automatic. But there's also usually, you know, they don't watch it or they don't book. That's the best. I mean, like if I were you and you really want to test like what's the best thing to do, you said you already tested this. So if that's the case, we'll cross that off. So you're like, hey, I already tested that to a 15-minute. If I were you, I would test this and then I would also test that. Now in a perfect world, what's the best funnel? This is the best funnel. Why is that the best? Because it's the easiest to scale. But if it doesn't work, then we got to go here, which is what I do in my company. Like I've done it for 6 years. And we just never get as good results. I don't know why. I don't know if it's our niche, our industry or whatever. We just don't. So I just don't try to like force something like a square into a circle that's not there. But this is like where your head should be if you want to test, okay? The other thing is like, if you want to get to 50K a month, let's back up. You spend $1,000 a month and that gets you basically 3 new customers, right?
Yeah, so this has been like in the last 2 months specifically.
Okay.
Before I've been on and off on the ads. Honestly.
Why?
Because...
Are you a one-man show right now?
No, I do have the setter. I have someone that is, I'm partially delegating the media buying, like not completely.
What's the setter get paid?
$1,000 per month.
Plus what? Like
that's it.
That's it?
Yeah, the setter for the clients.
Domestic?
This is the setter for the clients.
Foreign or domestic?
Foreign.
Foreign?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what does the media buyer get?
Media buy right now it's $650 per month. So that's it. He's not even full time.
Some cheapo.
Yeah, but he's not even full time.
Yeah, that's
I'm
good.
just
No, that's
playing,
good.
like,
That's super cheap.
A couple of hours.
Okay,
Like,
so the setter is calling all the leads, right? So when you run these DM ads, how are you getting their information to call? Or is that the setter for your clients?
can you repeat that again, sir?
So this guy here, is he calling your leads or your clients' leads?
Oh, my clients' leads.
So no one calls your leads. Who calls your leads?
No, I'm calling them.
You call the leads?
Yes.
Where do you get their info?
But
though,
right now, I'm mostly doing DMs, and on triage, I'm taking the triages. Yes.
But how do you get their call? Do you ask for it here? Or how do you
yes, I ask for their.
So you'll be talking to them, and then you're like, "Yo, give me your."
on the chat.
Okay.
Correct.
But it doesn't like, it's not like auto-populated. It's like you're manually asking for it. Yes.
Yes, exactly. I'm manually asking for the information.
I don't love that. Have you ever thought about running like an ad to a lead form or something?
Yes, but like one of the main things that I like about this funnel is that they get nurtured with my content. With just like the low number of content that I have, they get nurtured. And I feel like that has simplified like my sales process and building trust. And when I've tried lead forms, like I just feel like I'm doing a cold call, honestly.
Okay, so what I would do based on what you said is if you've already tested this, let's cross that off, but make sure you've tested it thoroughly. Like it should be like, you should be certain. You're like, if I do this again for, I spend $10,000, it's gonna be that.
Sure.
Then what I would do next is I would try this because it's the most similar if you want to. Like if you think this is not scalable, which, you know, I don't, possibly might not be, I would test this, but I'd test that. And all you would do is you would just take like, you know, in a month, if you're spending 1,000 here, then I'd put like 500 here and like 500 here, and you just chalk it up as like testing for the month, or maybe even 1,000. Do like 1,000, 1,000, 1,000, whatever.
For sure.
Okay. You'd have to just make sure it's different funnels, different tags, whatever. I mean, like, what do you think the bottlenecks are? Because like right away, the first thing I notice is very simple. It's like, if you're doing a 350 CAC and you're spending $1,000, then like, let's say hypothetically, if you spent $2,000, you're gonna get 6 clients, right? Spent $3,000, you'd get 9 clients. Now it doesn't always stay equal, but even if this was like 7 and this was like 5, who gives a you're still very positive ROI. So what's stopping you from spending more money? Or why are you scared to spend more? Because $1,000, like, to be frank with you, it sounds like you have a decent amount of recurring revenue. I might be incorrect. Yeah, so really most of your revenue is recurring at this point, correct?
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So what are you so scared of?
I think also like keeping a balance between, like, whenever I get a lot of clients, I feel like I need to service them the right way. So
Right, but why don't you hire someone to do the service? You're $25K a month.
100%. That's another one of my bottlenecks. Like not being able to delegate the right way.
Why not? Like what's stopping you from delegating?
Nothing, honestly. Like it's just like I need to spend more on ads in order for me to like make sure. I just really, maybe unconsciously, I feel like I really like being on the back end, but being
CEOs aren't meant to be on the back end.
Exactly.
So you have to do a couple things. So like this is a personal choice. You don't have to do this.
Yeah.
But if you're like, hey, I don't know if this can scale, then don't wait until you're spending more. So test it now. Because once you scale, it's going to be more of a show. So if you want to do this now, I would take like, if you're going to do $1,000, I would be like, hey, I'm going to blow $2,000 this month on these. You probably wouldn't blow it, but like test it. And then you can look at the data equally across 30 days and see what you get. In a perfect world, you would test for 90 days because sometimes 30 days isn't enough. That's your decision though. As of now, there's no problem, so I'm not going to try to fix it. I mean, your profit margin's 90-something%, right?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
why are we trying to fix it? In terms of hiring, you need to get out of the account management immediately. The one thing that you need to do for sure is, I think I heard you say you do mostly real estate, but you also do other stuff.
Yeah, so
What's
I
the other
do
stuff?
I have a couple of clients that are contractors.
What does that mean though? Like
Contractors, like painting companies.
Painting?
Specifically, yes, painting companies and remodeling companies.
All right, so what I'd recommend you do, and I've done this for every agency guy who's come in here the last 3, we literally had all agencies today too, right? Like everyone's been an agency. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Apparently we got to get him to pick different companies or something. But the thing I don't want you doing is I don't want you doing anything besides real estate. And here's why, okay? Every issue I've seen with the agency world is where people try to service too many people. The issue with that is it makes it very difficult on account management. Why? Because when it's a done for you service, the person who's the account manager, if it's a lot of different clients, has to be really smart.
Yeah.
Really smart people want a lot of money. That's not something you can afford right now. Like if I was your account manager and I was running a bunch of different accounts, I'd be like, yo, I need like 15 G's a month.
Yeah.
It's like, that's stupid. So if you only do real estate, what happens is when they come in, you do the same funnels, you do the same copy, you do the same emails, you do the same texts, you blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
So the account manager is just duplicating across the board. So you probably could have one media buyer do 50 accounts, okay? Now the account manager's job, just so we're clear, their only job is to make sure they're closing the deals because you're already doing the follow-up, correct?
Correct.
So there's only 2 things that this person has to do. The setting and the closing. You're already doing the setting, so let's cross that off. And I'm assuming you're gonna keep your team up to speed on that.
Correct.
So all you have to do in account management is on a daily basis, if I were you, is you'd go, how many bookings did you get? How many shows? And then how many closes, right? And or is that the right metrics you would say? Booking, shows, closes, or no?
A contract, a booked appointment, and then a contract. They put the seller on the contract, and then they close the deal.
So bookings, and then a contract, and then a close. So like if I'm the account manager, this is all I'm doing. Every day, you should have an automation if you can that goes in and says, please drop your numbers for bookings, contracts, and closes. And you should have it every day.
Yep.
What will happen is you're gonna look at these numbers and you're gonna see who's a dip and then who needs help with the closing. That's all the account manager should be doing. You're just making sure like, what are you saying? Here's a script. So like if I'm you and you're my client, I sign you up, I onboard you. I'm like, here's how everything's gonna work. Please watch these videos on the closing and we need these numbers every day. We're gonna help you with this. Also, you could put in your agreements like conditional guarantees around like them having to do this to force them to do it. Because at the end of the day, if they're getting closes, they'll keep paying you. So at the end of the day, as long as you're getting them decent leads and you're qualifying them, the reason they wouldn't continue is they can't close, right?
Yep.
So that's where you have to help them. Now, at the end of the day, it's their job. But if I'm a done-for-you agency like you are, the one thing I would have, I like have a SOP around the closing, like do this, 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 this. And then you have the account manager checking if they're not getting help, then you get the account manager like, yo, like let's get on a call, let's talk about it. Or I don't know if they can record these these meetings or something, but like that's where you want to help them. Is it like in-person meetings or is it virtual?
Phone virtual.
They're virtual?
Yeah.
So they should record them and send you the recordings, and the account manager helps. So really what you need with the account manager is someone who's good at sales.
Yes.
That's really what you need, which means you might have to pay a little more, but at the end of the day, it will pay dividends if you don't have to keep getting new clients, right? Because like
100%.
that's what's great about agencies is it's a lot of recurring. Does that all make sense to you?
100%. The check-ins, like making sure that they're checking in, like, okay, these are my connected leads, closings.
They have to, bro.
Yeah,
and if they don't give it,
that's a great process, because right now I'm doing check-in calls, weekly check-in calls.
yeah, and you're just like, what's going on? That's not good enough. That's not good enough. And what you could do is you can automate most of it by having a sheet and saying this needs to be filled out every day. If clients won't do it, then when you can, like, you don't have to do this, but if you need them to do it and they're not doing it, you're like, listen, I'll give you like a full refund if you don't get results, but it's conditional on this to like force the action you want. So like had like a conditional guarantee or something that was like, if you get your ads up and running in 7 days, you get a full refund. And the reason they did that is they saw that all their clients who got the best results got their ads up in 7 days. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So that's an example. So that's all your account manager needs to do. And then he's really working with sales, which means you need to have someone who probably has prior real estate experience, and you might have to pay him a little bit more, but it's going to be worth it. So maybe you could find someone who's going to do it for like $7 grand. Like, cause I have some sales coaches, they'll pay them like around 7, right? So if you're doing 7, now it depends, right? But like, I think you could find someone where it's like, look, you're not doing any sales calls, you're only sales coaching, cause that's really what you need. And then making sure that that's happening. Cause I don't see anything else they need help with. You're doing everything else, correct?
Yeah. They also need help on the follow-up, like actually just putting in the work on calling the leads and connecting them.
But aren't you the one who's doing the follow-up? I thought you said that.
Yeah, I don't know, exactly. But some of them,
that.
they decide to do it themselves just because they don't have the money to afford the setter.
But why don't you just make that part of your service in general? Like, I would just like include it. Why don't you just increase the price and include it? Because you already know that if your setter does it, you're going to get better results, right?
100%. Yeah, I guess.
So I wouldn't even make this an option. I just be like, it's 7,500. We're going to call all the leads for you. All you got to do is close it. I would just make that. Now, if you get a client that's like broke,
yeah,
then you have to have like a threshold. But at the end of the day, I would prefer, like, remember, dude, agency work is not just about making the initial sell. It's about what's going to happen in the long run. So if you keep getting these clients, if you had 10 clients and 5 are these and 5 are those, how many of each would cancel?
Mostly the ones that are not.
This one,
that
right?
We're not, yeah, exactly.
Right.
We're not taking.
So why are you even, you know what I'm saying? Like, so why even put yourself in that situation? Now, part of it is like, because you want to make the sale, you want to make some money. I get it. But at the end of the day, this isn't going to cut it. We already know that. So I wouldn't even offer it. It's like, listen, you need us to do this. If you don't, you won't get results and you're not going to get a great service. You got to do it. I just make them agree to it. If they're skeptical, you're like, look, do it for 1 month or something. And that would even be better in my opinion. On this back end part, you're not, the only thing I don't like too is here, you're not getting any emails or phone numbers in your system, correct?
No.
So that's the one downside is you have 0 follow-up processes. There's nothing you can do. So that's another reason, like, I'm not a huge fan because, like, at the very least, if you ran like an ad to a DM and then it was like to via seller opt-in page, at least you could try to scrape their data. But again, like, it's working. So at the end of the day, if like you were doing $1 million a month and you weren't getting any emails, who gives a But it's just in the long run, probably if you don't have any follow-ups and you don't build a database, it's also harder for you to sell the company because someone's like, well, what am I buying? You're like, well, I have all these clients and they do 8 stuff a month. You're like, how big's your email list? It's like, it's 0. And you're like, oh, really? You have 0 contacts? Just something to think about. And the thing I want you to take away from this right now is like, I don't want you to change your whole business. You're making money. You're spending $1,000 a month. Your cost is $2,700 a month, which means you're taking home like $22,000. So you're doing something right, okay? That's a lot of money for a lot of people. But I'm just trying to have you look at the full picture because as you scale, things that are not a problem now will become problems. And so that's just something to think about. So what I would do, so far, here's what I would do, okay? I would test these sooner than later. If you don't want to test them, then don't test them, but don't wait until you get bigger and then test. That's stupid. Like, you want to figure this out now, right? So you're like, I know for a fact that like, if you tested these 3 funnels with 1,000 each for the next 3 months, you spent $9 grand, you just bit the bullet and you're like, I lose money, I lose it. You would know for sure and you'd feel really confident. You're like, that's the best funnel. And you treat them equally. Like, you work the leads the same, et cetera, but I would probably do that. If you can't do it all at once, cut the budgets. So be like, I'll spend 500 here, 500 here, 500 there, right? So it's not like as much, but it's like, you need to keep it equal. That's step 1, if you want to do that, okay? Once we do that, I want you to try to increase LTV, which means you need an account manager ASAP who specializes in sales, right? Every day you're going to get these 3 numbers, and that should just be, need your numbers, and you look for patterns. It should be very easy to tell who's a and who's not. You spend more time, people are smart, spend less time, okay? And then you just max him out until he's maxed out. You already have a media buyer who's taking the accounts. You're good there.
Yeah, so he's only working like 1 hour daily. So that's the reason that I'm paying.
It's easy.
Yeah,
It's easy.
so that's the reason that I'm paying just that.
It's easy.
Otherwise, it would be like
he could handle 50 clients for sure.
For sure. Yes,
50
exactly.
clients.
It's easy. So,
50
but the problem is that I'm also doing the media buying right now, and I shouldn't be doing that. Yeah.
You're doing client media buying?
Yes. Correct.
So what's he doing?
He's doing a couple, like I'm partially delegating, like he's
You
doing
need
a
to
couple
delegate.
of,
Bro, you
but I
can't-
haven't delegated it fully.
You got to get out of all the fulfillment. Got to let it go. Okay, so this guy needs to go to full time, or you need to find someone who can do full time. Why? Like, is he good enough, or do you need someone smarter?
Smarter.
Okay, so you need to start looking.
Yes.
Like you can't. Like CEOs are not supposed to be in fulfillment. It's way too time consuming. You have to drive sales. You have to drive marketing, content. You don't have time for this. So we'll go through the hiring process. So you need to get this off your plate ASAP, and then you need to get an account manager ASAP. So if you want to be the most cost efficient, you pay someone part-time, and then you're like, but long-term I want you full-time, or you just pay them part-time till the job gets bigger, and then you can go find someone full-time. Because it doesn't sound like you need someone full-time.
No.
But even if you paid someone $2,500 a month, and that gives you the time back, you can make one extra sale. That's where your head needs to go. Like you can't be stupid about it.
Yeah.
So media buyer, account manager, check. Okay. Other than that, you just have like kind of the same issue as everyone else, is like you're scared of spending. The way you know if you can spend more is, like I said, it's cost of acquisition for this. So on 7,500, you could spend up to 2,000. On 4,500, you can spend up to 1,200. So what this tells me is you need to spend a hell of a lot more money. You're not spending nearly enough. Even if nothing improved and your costs went up 4x, you'd still make a lot of money.
Yep.
It won't matter. And you make a lot more, because if you're spending, let's say 4,000 and this went up to 1,000, you just made 12 sales in the month. Who gives a shit, right? It won't matter. So a lot of this is pretty easy to fix, I think. Let me pause and breathe. What questions do you have, or is there something that doesn't make sense you want more clarity?
Honestly, this is perfect. Like you're talking about stuff that I didn't even like put on the surface. So
Yeah, so you're in a good, the big thing is like, don't change what you're doing drastically. It's like, this is like, test this if you want, because when you quadruple your business, this won't work quite as well as it does now, in my personal opinion. That's why I would test it. At the end of the day, it's all results driven. We don't give a shit what the funnel looks like, or who's naming it, or who calls, whatever. The other thing is like, the account manager should have a training on like, here's how the sales should go. Follow this to a T, just like Jim did. Jim was like, all right, gym owner, come in, do this, don't f it up. Like they did the whole process for him. Why? Because they want to make sure everyone gets the same results. Once you do that, part-time media buyer probably to start, and then you work with him in intentions to go full-time, or you could get like maybe a full-time foreign guy. Like you can get a full-time foreign person like $1,500 a month. That probably, if they are good enough, I would probably go that route. If they're not, then you could get like an American for like $2,500, and you just do part-time, and then you just keep them there until it's full-time.
yeah, so I do have a question on the like another of my struggles on the IGDM ads is that it's only on Instagram, right? So I'm not marketing to that Facebook audience as well, and I think there's a good market over there.
I mean, test it. Dude, I'll be honest with you. 3 years ago, we were running $500,000 a month on Facebook. Now we run 0. We don't do any on Facebook. I can't tell you anything other than it changed. Like our quality is just a lot better on IG. So if you haven't tested it and you don't know, obviously you should. That makes total sense, but it doesn't matter as long as you're getting results. Again, if you keep these same numbers, you'll be super rich. Now, numbers will start to change as you spend more, but it's like, oh, I only run ads on IG for $350 CAC. It's like, who gives a shit? That's fine.
Yes.
Okay. In terms of hiring, do you know how to hire?
No, I don't have a proven process.
Okay, so hiring, first thing is like you can hit your email list. Like, so where can you go? Email list, social, right? So you could do a post, and you're gonna usually wanna drive it to a type form, okay? The other place I like to go is LinkedIn. So I pay LinkedIn like $750 a month for like 5. You don't have to pay that much, but like we go through a lot of like recruits and stuff. But you can pay them like, I think it's like $750 a month. And what we get is like 5 slots for positions year round, and they just like run consistently. You can also like pay for like clicks and stuff, but like whatever. It's just whatever's most cost efficient. What you do is you'll do a job post, and then the job post, you'll push them to the type form. I'm gonna come show you the type form quickly, like an example. And then I'm gonna walk you through like what to say on the interviews. All right, so let me sit next to you. Good. Okay, so this will just be an example. At the end of the day, the questions you're asking is you want to be able to tell just from these answers who's worth an interview.
Yeah.
The goal is not to get on a lot of interviews. The goal is like, if I have 350 of these, I take like 5 or 10 interviews.
Yes.
That's it. So this is an example of like a setter. It's like first and last name, best of phone number, how many years of sales experience, what kind of like, this is more of like, who did you do sales for? Because again, like if someone's like, I did, sales for like Russell Brunson, it's like, that'll be probably really good because they're going to have a lot of context. If it's like, I did sales for, McDonald's drive-thru, it's like, that's probably nothing. How many years have you worked remotely before, full-time or part-time? Resume is good just to kind of see jobs. And then the last thing that we don't have here that I would add is like an audio file. So it's like, in 30 seconds, tell me why I should hire you. What we're listening for is actually if they sound weird. Right? Because if they sound weird, I probably don't want them to be like a sales coach who's like,
Yes.
hey, it's like you want someone normal. Yeah. That's really what you're listening for, okay? I'll show you the sales coach position just because that's what you're really looking for. Really what you're looking for the account manager is like a sales coach, in my opinion. Because at the end of the day, they're trying to drive more sales with that person. So it's like, I wouldn't hire for anything else.
Would you say they have to be specifically real estate focused?
Probably.
Like, yeah,
I mean,
ideally,
if they have that,
ideally,
ideally for sure. So like, let me show you my sales coach application. It's like when we're looking for sales coaches, like, well, the first thing is like, let me take you here. So if you look at this, it gives a description. It's like the goal on a job post is to tell them why they should choose you. So it's like, why should you work for me? And put all the best reasons. Don't put shit that's good for you. It's like, well, we're a big company. We bring on this many clients per month. We talk about all the benefits of working with us. Then it's like a little bit about us, a job description, what we're looking for, responsibilities, benefits, and then they just do the type form. Now, in terms of the results, some of the questions, this is for sales coaches. It's like first and last name, best phone number, where'd you see the job posting, describe the products you're sold and what prices. The reason I do that is all of them like, oh, I'm the best sales guy ever. I'm like, the best thing to ask is like, what have you sold and what's the price points? Because if I hear that, I kind of know what they already know, right? So it's like real estate for this price, tacos for $5. Like that's what I'm looking for. Then I'll ask them what a high ticket deal is. A lot of them, I do that too because they're doing high ticket, sales coaching typically. And a lot of people will say like crazy answers like, oh, it's anything over 2 million. I'm like, bro, what? Like 2 million? So it lets me know they don't have a lot of context. And again, you're trying to see what they know without kind of giving them the answer. How many high ticket deals have you closed? Do you understand this is a sales coaching position, not a sales job, right? A lot of people get that confused. Do you understand this is a full-time role? Why are you interested in working with us? Have you ever taught sales before? Have you ever led a team of sales reps? What's the longest you've ever stayed in a company? What do you currently do for work? How many days are you willing to work? 30-second voice note, resume. So again, like you don't have to ask all these, but at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is like, what questions do you need to ask that will save you a lot of time from getting on tons and tons of interviews where you can just scroll and be like, bad. And remember, 90% of these will be shit. That's okay. All right. So any questions on this?
No, really clear.
Okay, cool. All right. I'll send this to you as well so you can like see it. Okay. So there's that. Now, in terms of, now you've done the type form. So the type form is going to weed out 90%. Now, once you're on the call, there's only 5 questions you really give a shit about. So first one, company mission and like values. I'll say values. So values is usually 3 things, but it can be more. For me, I look at my best players on my team and I write down the traits they have and I'm like, that's what I want on my team. So like, I'll give you an example. Company values for me is like competitive greatness. So that really just means people want to do a good job at their job, right? You know the difference, right? I had jobs when I was a kid, but I was a beast at it. Like I would clean the out of that toilet, you know what I mean? I want that. Proactivity, like would be another one. And then like, let's say radical candor, which is like fancy way of like good comms, right? Like saying the hard things, like being able to be like, hey, that funnel's trash or you need to fix it. Like some people, they have a hard time with that. Yeah. So you start off by saying, here's what my company is about. This is what aligns with me. If you're not, and like you want to scare people. Like you're not like a but it's just like, look, if you're not like this won't be for you. You're trying to let people know up front, like what you care about, what's important to you, so you don't get the wrong type of person. So that's all you're trying to do is like, here's what we care about. Next thing is then the job description and expectations. So again, here you want to be like, so for example, the account manager, you'll be like, so your full-time job is going to be work with people on sales. You're going to be auditing their stuff, helping them on sales calls, etc. You're going to be working on, let's say it's 8 hours a day, you say that. If it's 10 hours a day, you say that. You're like, you get this time off. Like you want to make sure it's like they understand exactly what they're getting into. Because you ever notice sometimes you hire people and then they're like, oh, I didn't know it was going to be like this. That's your fault. Yeah, like they should know 100%. Once you do this, and again, we almost want to scare them off. I'm like, yeah, and just so you know, this will be really hard. And if you don't have big nuts, like you don't want to work for me. Like whatever you need to say, it's just like, I want them to know. After I do the job description expectations, Then I'm gonna say, what jobs have you had? And walk me through a day to day. Why does that matter? Because it's the same things you just told me. Like, based on everything you just told me, you're like, you know how to run ads, you know how to do sales, you know how to do setting. You've hired at least a couple people. You might not be an expert, but at least you have some experience. You're getting really good cost of acquisition. You know how to set up funnels. I know this all about you now. So based on that, I'm like, could he do a funnel designer job? Could he do emails? Could he do sales? I'm like, probably, right? So instead of saying, what are your skills, which is question, you say, what jobs have you had, and walk me through a day to day. So they're like, well, I was a janitor, so I mopped the floor, I get new toilet paper, whatever. That's important. You want to ask questions that gets them to open up without them kind of knowing what the right answer is. Because some people will lead people like, so do you like to work hard? No. It's like, what the f- do you think they're going to say, dude? Yes. So we don't want to ask those types of questions. Once they do this, then we're going to say, what's a perfect company look like to you? So let's say you start working for Tanner, right? And someone asks you what you do, and you're like, oh, I work with Tanner now. And they're like, oh, how is it? And you're like, oh, it's amazing. I love it. And they're like, why do you love it so much? And it's like, what are the things you would say? And what I tell people on the interviews, I'm like, don't give me a BS answer. Like, what do you actually give a shit about? Like, what do you care about? And then what they'll do is they'll start telling me. And they're like, well, I'm like, do you like cupcakes? Do you like time off? Do you want bonuses? Like, I don't give a shit. I just need to know how they think, right? And then I also look for what they say, because some people are like, oh, I like a lot of time off. That doesn't really fit me. Like, go work somewhere else. Or whatever they say, it's not bad per se, but it's like, I want to know what they care about. And then the last thing is then I say, how much do you want to make? Okay. And the reason for that is because then I can, like, let's say your price point for what you want to pay them is $5,000. Okay, well, if they say, well, I want to make $4,000, well, you can either save $1,000 or you can make it like a bonus incentive. You're like, hey, I'm going to give you $4,000, but if you do X, Y, Z, you get $1,000, whatever. Or B, if they're like, I want 10,000, you're like, whoa, Nelly. You're like, yo, dude, like, that's too much. Like, just being realistic with you. And you figure it out there, because what I've done is I've had interviews and then I'll make an offer and then they like are trying to go back and forth. I'm like, dude, like, I'm not going to pay you 10 grand. It's like, this is what I can pay you. It gives you an idea. It's just, it's good to know on interviews as well, because as you're taking interviews, if you're doing a sales coach for the account manager, you'll get all these different price points. You'll kind of see where the market value is. Like, you'll kind of see where people think they're at. Once you've asked all this, you should have a pretty good idea if they're going to be a fit for your team. The other thing you could do as well is you could give them a stress test. That's one thing I left out. I forgot to say that in my other video. Stress test. So if I was going to hire a media buyer, after the interview, I'd send them a stress test. I'm like, here's this scenario. Tell me what you do to solve it. Because you want to see how they think. If it's a sales rep, I'm going to have them sell me call footage. I'm like, hey, send me call footage. They're like, oh, I don't have any. It's like, cool. I'll give you a practice. Here's my script and my practice calls. Review that. And when you're ready, reach out to me. And then you give them a live call that you wouldn't usually take. So when you have one of those people come through, give them a lead and let them do it and record it. Because again, we're not looking to see if they're going to be perfect. We want to see like what their process is. You know how many sales guys tell me they're good? Literally 100%. And most of them suck. So that's the other thing. If it's, what other positions can you do it for? If it's like a coach, give them a scenario. You're like, hey, so if a client did this or this was happening, what would you do? Because again, if you know what the answer should be, then you're trying to see if they can get the answer right. That's the only other thing I left out. You can do it on the interview, or you can do it after the interview, or even prior to the interview, right? So when we do media buyers, we send them a stress test for like, let us know how it goes, or like send it back when you're done, okay? That's everything on hiring. Anything that is not clear or that you need more clarity on?
No, it's super
Pretty
clear.
straightforward? Okay.
Yes.
I mean, what other questions do you have? I don't see any massive bottlenecks unless you want to get into more statistics. I mean, really simply for you, it's like spend more, okay? Test funnels, okay? Hire help. I mean, that's it. This is like what you need to do to get to 100K, obviously. I mean, you need to. So I can go over whatever. I don't know if there's like specific stuff or questions you have, but I mean, that's like in a nutshell what you definitely need to do.
Yes. So I guess on the opt-in funnel, and I was going to ask you like the structure specifically for that opt-in funnel, how many qualifiers should I have? Because right now I'm focusing on first make sure that they're doing X deals per month, for example, minimum 1 deal per month. Yeah, like the initial qualifiers, and then they're able to become a lead, and then I send them to the booking call. So
how like when you're DMing them, right?
No, so that's for the plan for the opt-in for the VSL funnel, but sending them to the opt-in and then optimizing for leads versus DMs.
Okay, so, but what's the question? I don't get the question.
Like how in-depth do you usually go in terms of the qualifiers on that opt-in? Is it just email, name, phone number, or?
Yeah, the opt-in doesn't matter if you're going to a VSL, because the VSL will have the application. That's the qualifier.
Okay.
Like, I don't usually qualify super hard on the leads because you're going to lower your opt-in rates. Because I want as many opt-ins as possible. So usually what I do on that is I'm just like name, email, phone number. That's it. Right? Okay. Then you get their email and stuff on the back end. You can start sending them stuff. But then really, like on that type of funnel, this is the qualifier.
Yes.
This isn't qualified.
So you're optimizing for booked calls versus leads.
Well, yeah, just because the issue is like if you qualify too hard, you might scare people off. Because remember, the more steps you have, the less likely they are to do it.
Yep.
So to me, it's like, I mean, you can do that. You can split test it, but again, what's going to happen is you're going to drive up the lead cost. So that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, because if you have more qualified leads and there's less, it's okay. But again, it's like, what's the objective of the opt-in? The objective of the opt-in is like get their information. It's not really to qualify, typically. You could do that, but really at the end of the day, all we care about is like once they book the call. If they're an unqualified lead, like who gives a shit?
Yes.
It's not like, you're not gonna you don't have to waste a bunch of time on them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're calling on the leads and you're trying to vet that way so you don't have to call a bunch of brokies, yeah, you could do that. So you could do a survey, because some guys do surveys. Like I talked to a guy yesterday who does Cairo, and he does a survey. And the survey is basically just his fancy way of saying he does like name, email, number, like do you have employees? Like he has like some other and he has like 8 or 9 questions, and then that kind of is like his survey, but he pays $50 a lead. So to answer your question, it's like funny. I know I'm not giving you a direct answer, but it just depends, and you guys test it.
Test it.
Right. End of the day, anytime you want to know something for sure, even if someone tells you like do this, like unless they've done it themselves, that exact thing, they're guessing. And even sometimes if I do it and I get a good result with this, you might do it and get a better result with that. I've seen it happen all the time. So what's the pros and the cons? Pros here, more leads. Cons, less qualified. Here, less leads. Con, pro, more qualified. You decide what's more important to you. But at the end of the day, what's the most important stat? CAC, right? I don't give a if you run it here, at the end of the day, all that we're gonna look at, what's the most important thing is CAC. Now, if you have too high of a CAC, what are you gonna look at? Well, what's your application cost? And what's your lead cost? And what's your click-through rate? But at the end of the day, if I have a 0.001 click-through and I have a $95 lead cost and I have a $3,000 app cost, but my cost of acquisition is lower, which obviously it can't be lower than the application cost, but you get where I'm going with it. I don't give a right?
100%.
That's the biggest determinant factor. So when you're testing, that's why you have to see all the numbers. These are lead indicators, meaning if you have a high CTR and a low lead cost and a low app cost, what do you usually have? Low CAC. But it doesn't always work that way, right? And then you backtrack. So in order of most important, it's CAC, then it's app cost, then it's lead, and then it's CTR. So whenever I'm trying to fix a problem, I always start here. So like if my CAC's too high, then I'm like, well, what's my app cost? If the app cost is too high, it's like, okay, we probably have a nurturing issue. If the app cost is low, it's like, ooh, we might have a sales issue, right? Because if we're getting a lot of apps but we're not closing, like you see how you backtrack it? At the end of the day, it's all about CAC. So like if my business is doing, $4,000 CAC on a 16K offer or lower, we're good. If it's above that, we're not good.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, so going to your question about follow-up, like I've seen on the messenger ads that I really simplified the sales process again by nurturing people. So I guess with this process, I'll be able to send them email marketing, SMS, etc. And also,
yeah, I mean, the thought process around that is as the business scales and you have more customers and you get more leads, is that not all of them are going to buy right away. So if you have stuff on the back end, maybe eventually they will. With what you're doing right now, it's either they buy now or they never buy at all.
Yes.
Because you have no follow-up process.
100%.
Right? So I hear what you're saying if you're like, hey, we get drop off, but again, you got to split test and you got to be certain, because at the end of the day, like how many people scale, like to 100K a month, you probably get away with it. But if you also want to like, okay, I get to 100K and then I want to get to 200 and then 300 or whatever, how many companies do you know that just run ads to a DM and don't get any info?
Yeah.
Not very many. Why? Because it just usually doesn't work as well. It's working for you right now. But also remember, as you scale, things will change. Like it gets more complex, because now it's like when they talk about the planes off a degree, it's like as you scale, it's like that could, like 1 degree could be more, because now you have 4 times leads and then none of them are getting follow-ups. So now it's a bigger deal.
Yeah, you get a diminishing return effect as you scale 100%. Makes sense.
What other questions do you have, or what do we need to cover?
Like how do you handle like that anxiety that like you can have as you're scaling and as you're getting a lot of clients and you're like putting out fires and delegating tasks and activities and even hiring? Sometimes it can be a lot, I guess, and even like a higher scale. Like how do you handle like sort of that volume of activities going on?
I mean, the biggest thing is like you just have to understand when you're stressed out or you're overwhelmed, it's because you've usually failed to delegate, which sounds like you're struggling to do that right now. So you just have to learn how to hire, how to train, and then you just got to trust people. And then if you trust them and they do a bad job, you remove them. If they do a good job, you keep them. That's how you handle the stress. I mean, the other part is like, when you're pushing a business and you're trying to grow very quickly and rapidly, you will get stressed. Again, it's accepting it's part of the game. I think it's not normal not to feel stressed. Like, so again, if someone's like, oh, you should feel woo-woo all day and you should not feel stressed out, you'll start thinking that. if you know like, hey, I'm gonna push the business, I'm gonna be stressed out sometimes, when you're stressed out, it won't bother you as much.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of like your issues or maybe problems lie in your lack of expectation. Building big businesses is hard. You should feel stressed out. It's okay. Yes. It's normal, right? The other part is like you're not delegating. So yeah, as the business grows, what's happening? You're doing more and more things until you get spread so thin you can't do it, and then you get overwhelmed, right? Which is why you need to start learning how to delegate and hire now. I couldn't possibly run the company I have without people. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think I just need to focus on the actual delegating side of the process so that I can actually, instead of trying to do, like, I wouldn't say everything, but yeah, like trying to be everywhere.
Yeah.
Like definitely start to delegate everything so that I can.
You can't. You have to decide, like, one of the things I have to do as CEO is I have to decide what's the most important task for me to work on and only do those. Because there's a million things I could do, right? So I have to go like, what's crucial? Like, what's the most important? What's going to move the business the farthest? And I only focus on that. What other questions do you have? Is there anything else?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of sales, like how do I overcome like I need to talk with one of your clients objection? And it's not that I don't even want to connect them with clients, but because I do that, but I can see that how that's a smokescreen with.
Right. So walk me through what you say. So you're like, hey, the price of the program is this. And then they're like, okay, yeah, I just need to talk to one of your clients first.
Exactly.
Okay. So the first thing I like to ask if someone says like, can I talk to one of your clients? I go, well, I mean, I can, but if you talk to one of the clients, are you going to 100% sign up? Because basically what you're saying is if you talk to the client, they say good things, which obviously they will because I'm going to connect you with one of my clients who've done well, then does that mean you're going to sign up? And they're usually like, well, I mean, I'm not 100% sure. So it's like, so it doesn't really matter if you talk to them anyways, does it? Right, that's the first thing I do, because a lot of times what they're trying to say is like, well, I just need to see some more of your reviews. It's like, well, what does it matter? It's like, how many reviews do you need to see before you're going to believe it? And like, you already saw the reviews before the call, didn't you? So why do you need to see more reviews? What is that going to do? They're just throwing bullshit. So that's the first thing I'll do. Now, if they still are just like, I just want to talk to a client, my rule of thumb is they have to at least put down a deposit to let me talk to the client. Because,
that's a good one.
Yeah, because one, they're bothering your client.
Yeah, exactly.
The other one is like, it's no incentive for you to do it because you're not getting paid anything. So what I do is I'm like, well, look, if you really want to talk to my client, I'm happy to do that, but I need you to at least put down a deposit and then you can talk to the client, but I don't want to go bother my clients unless I know that you're more than halfway committed, which means you putting down a deposit shows me some type of commitment. But if they won't put anything down, I'm like, then absolutely not.
100%.
I do that all the time. But the first thing is like, a lot of times whatever they say is bullshit. It's like, oh, if I talk to a client, I'll feel better. Dude, you know how many people have talked to clients and still don't sign up before I started getting a deposit? Like almost all of them. They're just like, they'll talk to them like, yeah, I'm still not going to do it. It's like, so why did we do that in the first place? Did that answer that question? So
yes.
The first one is like calling out their belief about that. And then the second one is like refundable deposit if they're going to talk to the client. The other way to attack belief, it's like you just say, like, let's say you say something like, yeah, but I still like want to talk to a client. You're like, yeah, but what if does talking to a client really matter? Like, yeah, but I just still want to. I could be like, okay, so for belief objection, what I do is I just say, what's the worst thing you think can happen, right? And usually what is the worst thing that they can think of happening? That it won't work, right?
That they will spend like $4,500 in investment management fee plus the ad spend and it will work. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's all it is. So they're like, well, I don't think it'll work. That's really what it is. You're like, okay, cool. So let's walk through this. The first thing is you can do it and it works and you're happy, right? Right? And that'd be great. Do you have any refund guarantees or conditional guarantees?
Lead guarantee, minimum lead guarantee, and closed deals guarantee. Like one deal closed in the 3-month time frame. If they don't close that, we work for free until
right.
they actually
So then
close.
You're like, you can do it and it doesn't work and we could refund you. Okay. And then you're like, number 3 is you can do nothing and stay stuck. And then you're like, so out of all 3 of those options, there's only one that makes no sense where you stay stuck. The other 2, you'll either get the results you want or you'll get a refund.
Yeah.
So there's really nothing to be scared of. So let's go ahead and move forward. And that's it. I mean, those are all belief issues you're getting though. Everything they're doing. So the way you beat people in belief is like, you don't tell them what to do. You ask questions and you get them to like understand, well, what are you scared of? You're like, well, what if I fail? It's like, well, so what? You can just go get a job, right? And you're like, well, yeah. It's like, okay. So is that bad? You're like, not really. It's like, okay. So what are you scared of? Like that's where I would go with that.
Laying down the options, essentially, like the
because a lot of times it's irrational fear. And like even if you didn't have a guarantee, I'd be like, okay, well, what if it doesn't work? It's like, so what are you gonna do? You're just gonna not do anything and waste more time? What about this? If you pay me $4,500 now and I can get you to 10K a month, right? And you make 30 grand in 3 months. Well, if you do nothing for 3 months, doesn't that mean you just lost 30 grand? You get what I'm saying? Like I can twist this any way I want. A lot of it's opportunity cost too.
Yeah.
Right. So for example, let's say you go home and I told you to increase your ad spend like I did today and you don't do it for 3 months. You're like, oh, I didn't lose any money. I'm like, yeah, you did. You lost an extra 45 G's.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
100%.
Because there's opportunity cost to everything in life. It's not just what, like a lot of people only perceive what they lose in the moment, but it's like, no, what you lose out on by not doing it. That's what a lot of people don't think about. So that's all I get them to see there.
That actually leads me to the question about like future pacing on the part of the sales call. Do you even do that on B2B? Like for example, the type of people that I'm saying?
Not a lot. It's more like you can. I mean, so again, you're like, how's it gonna feel, in 6 months if you actually hit the goal? You can do that. I don't do it as much. I'm not saying that it's not good. I don't do it. I just, I've done so many sales calls, bro, that I just get almost like tired of it. I'm just like, bro, in 6 months, if you make a lot of money, it's going to feel amazing. And if you don't make any money and you stay stuck, you're going to feel like shit, right? Like, so I'm not saying that's the right way to do it. I don't do as much future pacing. I probably should do more. What I'll tell you is never cut stuff out that can help you, but it can only hurt you. So like my advice is like, if you do that, keep it in there. Don't cut it out. Like it's like,
honestly, it doesn't resonate with me. So whenever
so if it doesn't, then don't do it though. Cause if it sounds cheesy, like sometimes to me, it sounds cheesy.
Yeah.
It's like, so what's it gonna feel like when you hit your goal? It's like good. It's like how good?
Yeah.
Like I'm with you where that's where I get more logical because I'm just like, look, bro, like let's just cut the shit. Like
I guess that works more on B2C. Like
I mean, it can work, but I think usually it's like a less sophisticated buyer.
Yeah.
And like if I'm talking to a business owner who's doing like $500,000 a month, it's like, well, it probably will feel good, but it honestly won't change my life at all. It's like, yeah, you don't need the money. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%. Also, actually, the competition objection, I get it a lot. Like, hey, I want to talk with. So I have a couple of sales calls lined up for this week, whatever. So they're in the active buying process and they just want to talk like to many people and they're actually having those calls, right? So sometimes I'm just one of those calls and I can't get them to make a decision right now or it's, how do you handle
Right, so there's a few things you can do. So the first thing is like, in a perfect world, when do you find out that they have more calls? At the end of the call or like during?
At the beginning, usually, in the beginning of the call.
Okay, so in a perfect world, there's a few ways to handle this. In the perfect world, if you know someone has more calls lined up, you're like, oh, cool, no worries. Like, how many calls do you have this week? And they're like, oh, I have like 5. And it's like, oh, it's like your last ones are like on Saturday or something. They're like, yeah, you're like, cool. And then you go through the call, and then after you do like your pitch, instead of dropping the price, what I usually do is it's like, so this is how I do my sales, right? I do intro or pre-frame, right? Questions or discovery, 3 pillars. Do you know what I mean when I say 3 pillars?
Yes.
You seen that before? Okay. Brief overview, like certainty question, and then a pitch, right? So the first thing is like, if I find that out earlier in the call, sometimes what you can do is like, cool, so like you have calls later this week, and I'm just like, kind of like, and you're like, yeah, like my last one's Friday. You're like, awesome, it sounds good, man. Well, I'm looking forward to like going through the call. And then what I'll do is I'll go through the 3 pillars and I'll stop. I'm like, cool. So like now that I've gone through that, what I'd like to do if you're open to it is you sound like you have a little bit of a unique situation, even if like they don't. I'm like, you sound like you have a bit of a unique situation. So what I'd like to do if you're cool with it is let's go ahead and talk again on Saturday around 10 a.m. You pick a time that's literally after their last call. And like, let's talk again at Saturday around 10 a.m. And then I'm gonna bring a customized solution to the call that I think like fits your situation, but I just want a few days to think about it. Is that cool? That's the first thing you can do. Because then what you're basically doing is you're not telling them the price and you're like making it last. Downside of that is like they could go buy someone else's program, but the upside is like if you don't think you have leverage, that keeps the leverage, right? You don't want to drop price until what? Certainty is as close to 100% as possible, okay? The whole point of a sales call is to raise certainty to 100% so that they'll buy, right? Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2 is then we need to look at your pillars. So if that's happening, then you're doing a shitty job on the pillars. Do you know what my 3 pillars are for my company? Because you've worked with us, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so do you remember the 3 pillars on your call? Okay,
so I think one of them was follow-up, right?
So one of them I think was offer creation. Another one was like the faucet system. And this might have been a while ago, so they could have changed. The last one is process. Okay, so I'm giving you an example so you understand. So usually in the pillars, 2 will be mechanisms. 1 will be why I should hire you. So for example, let's say I'm looking at you as an agency. You're like, all right, so the first pillar is what I call offer creation. So what we're gonna do first is based on everything you told me, you don't have good follow-up systems, you don't have your hiring in place, there's this and that. Like we're gonna fix all that stuff up. A lot of other people, they're just gonna come in and tell you to raise your price. That's not nearly enough. What we're gonna do is this, this, and this, right? So again, like I'm trying to create stuff, it should be the top 3 things of like why you're better than someone else, okay? The second one, usually what we tell people is we're like, look, so most agencies or coaching is going to tell you to run an automated webinar. Now, automated webinars can work, but at the end of the day, a lot of times they're inconsistent for people. So what we do is we do a method that we call the faucet system through something called conversion conversations. And what this does is it gives us a 50% increase in applications compared to an average webinar. Like, so what I'm doing is I'm like, here's what most people do, here's what we do. So you need to do a huge comparison. Now, this last part, if you're getting that on calls, we're like, yeah, I have a bunch of calls, this and that, bullshit. Well, then what you need to do is you need to have a pillar that tells why you're different. So for our pillar, I don't think you remember, but I'll walk you through it. So what we do is I go, so the last thing is what we call process, right? So if you're in a room with 10 business coaches and they all seem similar, how do you know which one to hire? And they're like, that's a great point. I'm like, exactly. Let's walk through that. So the first thing is experience. So we've been in business for 6 years. We've done about $70 million in the last 4. We have, 50,000 clients over the years. We've got a huge team. Like, no one's more experienced than us in this space, or very few people, which means that working with us, don't you want the person who has the most experience? Like, do you want a heart surgeon who's done it for 15 years or 3 months? Oh, 15 years. Right. So you see how I'm creating this gap? Yes. Number 2 is I'm like specificity. So for you, if you're doing real estate, you're like, I only focus on real estate. There's agencies that do this and that, etc. I'm the only one that focuses just on real estate, which means you're going to get the best, highest quality service for real estate. I know everything about the process A to Z. No agency is going to be better than me because I only do real estate. Okay, so if they're talking to other agencies that do real estate, what are you doing? Separating yourself, which they probably are, right?
Definitely.
100% they're doing that. And then the last one is like, we use attention, where we're like, look, a lot of programs, it's just a course and a Facebook group, etc. We're going to give you one-on-one attention. Not only that, but our CSD, we just hired a new guy who's our CSD. He's built 3 7-figure companies. And so I'm like, we're gonna give you unlimited one-to-one, plus our coaches are super top notch. Like, so the guy we just hired, he's like, how many coaches have you worked with that have built 3 7-figure businesses? My guess is probably not a lot. I think even when you worked with us, they weren't there. We have those coaches now. So what I'm getting at is like, if you're getting that bullshit at the end of the calls, what you're not doing is you're not separating yourself enough in the pillars, which is the whole point of the pillars. That might beat it. If it's still, they're like, yeah, but I still wanna take the calls, right? Then what you can usually do, this is the last, it's a delayed payment. So the first thing is like, remember earlier in the call, you do the 3 pillars and then you delay the next call.
Yes.
That's number 1. Number 2 is you have better pillars here. Number 3 is it's like, I still just want to talk to them. I do a delayed payment. So I go, look, are you over 50% sure that you'd like to work with us, or are you less? And they're like, well, I'm over 50%. I'm like, cool. So like, what I would do in this situation is I'm totally cool for you to go through your process, but at the same time, I want to have some type of micro commitment. And because you said you're over 50%, right? You're over 50% sure. What I'd like to ask you to do is go ahead and put down a refundable deposit. It's 10%. Go take those calls. And at the end, let's schedule a call on Saturday morning. And then we'll either use that towards your total, or I'll just refund you and call today. Does that sound fair enough? And then like, if they won't do that, we all know it's probably a low chance to come back, because that's like the 3 ways you can handle that. There's nothing else you can do, but I like using the over 50% frame, because they're like, yeah, I'm over 50%. It's like, cool. So like, if you wake up tomorrow and you feel the same way you do now, you're going to work with us. Like, yeah, it's like, cool. So like, let's just go ahead and do the refundable deposit, because it's 100% refundable. There's no risk. And then like, you leave it at that.
Yes.
Does that help?
100%.
But your pillar probably is like, you definitely need to fix the pillar, because if they're saying that at the end of the call, you haven't, what they basically just told you is, oh, you sound like everyone else, so I'm going to go listen to them too.
So mostly on my pitch, I'm going explaining the process. So that's definitely something that, instead of focusing on the 3 pillars, I used to do that and then I stopped doing it because I'm stupid. And
there you go.
So right now I'm just explaining the process. So I'm not upsetting myself.
Yeah, it's, remember, each pillar is like this. What they do, what we do. Okay, remember that. Okay, so if they're a beginner, you're like, here's what most people do, here's what we do. If they're experienced, you say, here's what you're doing. So like I'm doing to you today. I'm like, here's what you're doing, here's what you should do, right? Because again, you have to create gaps. Yeah, like if you got on a call with me right now and I was like, okay, so here's what we do. You're gonna make up in your head if what I'm saying is good for you or not. But if I'm like, here's what you're doing, and this is why this is dumb, and here's what you should be doing, and this is why it's gonna make a difference, you're like, oh, like that. You have to create the gap, because a lot of people, what they forget is that they don't know what bad looks like. So for example, have you ever worn makeup before?
No.
Okay, that was a trick question. I want to see if you was going to say to that. Let's say I go to you and I say, hey, I want to buy makeup for my girlfriend. What's the best one? You're like, this is the best makeup. Well, if I've never bought makeup before, what is the first thing in my head think? Yeah, okay, that sounds good, but I don't really know. So then I ask someone else. And before you know it, I have 10 different opinions on what's the best makeup. But if you go, Tanner, listen, this is the worst type of makeup and it has this in it, and the best makeup has this. So it doesn't matter what brand you get, as long as it has that, it's good makeup. Well, then I'm like, oh, this guy, like all of a sudden I have way more trust for you because you said, here's what bad looks like and here's what good looks like. The reason people get confused on sales calls is they take 10 sales calls and everyone tells them they're the best. Well, no shit, they're the sales rep. Of course they're gonna say that.
So they're not educating though.
Yes, they're not learning anything. So like even when they go talk to the other agencies, you know why it's pointless? Because they're all just gonna tell them they're the best. Like, no shit, Sherlock. That's why I don't get people to take all these sales calls. I'm like, what do you think they're gonna tell you? Oh, we're the best. We take the best. You know, it's like, so the whole point of the sales call is like, here's what bad agencies look like. Here's what a good agency looks like. I do that. Yeah. And if you can create that gap, you're gonna build a lot more trust because a lot of people on sales calls, what do? They just do a grocery list. They're like, all right, so if you buy this, you're gonna get this. Yeah. And that's not what makes people buy.
Definitely.
Does that make sense?
Makes total sense. Definitely. 100%. Yeah. So that exactly, like, that makes sales even more sense to me now, honestly, more than just, as you said, like, this is what we offer and that's it.
Yeah, because
like,
then they don't know. So like a guy like you can look at stuff I'm saying and you understand because you have contextual background, like you've done some stuff. You even in our program, right? But if you hadn't and you were brand new to business and I was like, listen, so you got to do this funnel and this and that, and you get it through, and then you talk to someone else, he's like, oh, that guy's a fucking idiot. You need to do this. You're like, oh, who's right? But if I'm like, listen, this is what bad looks like, and this is why, and this is what good looks like, and if someone tells you that's right, this is why it's wrong. You're gonna be like, oh, that guy's he knows what he's talking about. Yeah. That's probably why you're having also that brought up, because you're not creating a big enough gap. You need to create massive 100%. Gaps, bro. It's like I'm the good guy. These are all the bad guys, right?
Yes, 100%, definitely.
What else?
Yeah. So how would you structure like the pricing on like a deal on a done for you agency service? Like, would you keep it like the way that I'm doing right now, or would you like tweak it a little bit?
Well, like in like what regard? What do you mean?
Like the pricing, for example, 3-month commitments, like the minimum management.
I think 3-month commitment's good. I don't see it. I mean, price points. It's just like you would just test higher price points. I can walk you through like a price objection so you like understand how to raise the price points and test. Do you want me to do that?
Yeah, so it would be like how to overcome like people that.
Well, because like a lot of people, like really your question's like, should I restructure the price? I mean, I don't think so. You can raise the price. I think you should always raise prices. But a lot of people are like, well, how do I raise the price without losing the sale? Because what they worry about is like, if you go from like, let's say 7,000 to 10,000, you're gonna lose a lot of deals, right? Yeah. So the way you handle it is, I'll walk you through it. So what's the lowest amount of money you'll take on a deal? So like if someone was broke, but they really want to work with you and they're like, oh my gosh, I want to work with you so bad. I'm just so broke. What's the lowest amount you'll take?
$1,300 per month. Like that's the minimum management fee, like right now.
So here's what you would do, right? So you drop the price. The price of the program is what? What's your price?
The normal $1,500 per month. So
it's $4,500. Okay. Yeah. So the price of the program is $4,500. Okay. Oh, Tanner, that's too expensive. Totally get it, John. No problem. Is there anything besides the price that would stop you from moving forward today? So we're isolating the objection. He goes, no, it's just the price. First tie down. Then I go, got it. So just so I'm clear, if we're able to figure the price out, you're going to sign up? He goes, yeah, that's a double tie down. So I got 2 commitments. Got that? So is there anything besides the price? No, it's just the price. Got it. So if we figure the price out, you're in. Yes, that's 2. Then I go for cash on hand. So I go, got it. So just so I understand the situation, what's your cash on hand? Credit cards, savings, checkings. What do you have today that you could invest? Not in your crypto account or Ethereum or Bitcoin bullshit. Like, what do you have now? He's like, well, I've got, 1,300. So like the lowest amount you'll take. Okay, whatever. Then I go, got it. So look, I'm down to customize a solution for you. But before I do, this is key. Because what you don't want to do is you figure out a price and then they tell you they need to think about it. You ever had that happen?
Yes.
Where you like change the price? Like, yeah, but I still need to think about it. It's like, off. No. So it's what I do is I go, okay, so I'm down to work something out for you, but before I do, I just want to make sure that you can move forward today because the price usually is $4,500, but I'm down to customize a solution for you, but I just want to make sure if I do that, if I spend my time right now, that you can move forward. Is that fair? And they're like, well, what? They'll either say one of 2 things. Yes, so you do it. And they go, oh, well, what's the price? You're like, well, like I said, like, I don't want to get into any logistics until I know you're able to do something today if it makes sense. So like I said, if it doesn't make sense, obviously you don't have to, but as long as it financially makes sense, are you down to move forward today? Like, I just don't want to come up with a solution, then you tell me you need to think about it, for example.
So it's another tie down.
Yeah, it's another one, but it's even better because what it stops them from doing is backing out once you give them a discount.
Yes.
Because people do that shit all the time. So then they go, yes. I'm like, cool. So I don't think you should do nothing, but I also don't think you should spend everything. Okay, whatever. So you get it. So like what I mean by that is like, if I come to you and say, hey, how much money do you have? You're like, I got 10 grand. And I'm like, cool, give me your 10 grand. It's kind of like, like all of it, it's kind of shitty. So what I do in this situation is like, let's say he had 1,300. So remember, when they tell you that, you need to also get context. Like, okay, is that all set aside for a program, or like, do you need to spend some of that on your bills? And he's like, let's say he's like, well, it's just for the program. Yeah, it's like all set aside. So I'm like, cool. So I don't think you should do nothing, but I don't think you should do everything. So what I would suggest is, because you have 1,300 saved up, right? If they say a lower number, if he's like 500 a month, you're like, all right, that doesn't work, bro, right? Yeah. But let's say he said the low summary, like, look, so what I would recommend is it's typically 4,500, but if you can put that 1,300 down today that you saved up, I'll do the rest on a payment plan. We'll call it a day. Does that sound fair? And then what will happen is, when you're like, well, Tanner, should I raise my price? Bro, it doesn't matter. Say 10K, say 15K, say 20K, you're gonna do the same process. So, hey, the price of the program is 10K. Oh, that's too much. Do you do payment plans? Well, we usually like to take it up front. Does that work? That won't work for me. Okay, no problem. Is there anything besides the price that would stop you from moving forward today? No, it's just the price. Got it. So if we figure out price, you're in? Yeah, great. So just so I understand your situation, what's your cash on hand? Checking, savings, credit cards, etc. Well, it's 1,300. Okay, got it. So like, and that's savings, or is that like also your bills? It's like, well, it's mostly savings. Like I'm good. Like I got more for bills. Like, okay, cool. And so look, I'm down to customize a solution for you, but before I do, I just want to make sure you can move forward today, because the price usually is 15,000. And they're like, yeah, it's just so much. Like I just can't do it. It's like, no problem. Like, and look, I don't think you should do nothing, but I also don't think you should spend everything, right? Like I want to try to help you. So look, it's typically 15,000, but as long as you could put down that 1,300 today, right? And let's say like they said 2,500, and they were like, but some of that's for my groceries. Then just use common sense. But like, okay, how much is for your groceries? Like 1,000. Okay, well, so like, look, I don't think you should do nothing, but I don't think you should spend everything. So let's say they said 25. Like, so let's do this. Let's go ahead and have you put down 1,500. And then if you can do that same payment plan over the next 60 days, I'll honor that. I just need you to come in and promise two things. You'll work really hard, and you just don't tell any of the clients that you got a deal, because like I said, it usually is this price, but I'm gonna do that special customized plan for you because I really wanna help you. Is that fair? And then what happens is, one, they feel like they get a great deal. Two, you can test higher price points without losing the sale. And then three, it's like, that was your minimum anyways, and you got it, right? So you don't need to be stressed out about raising the price. It doesn't matter what you say. So this is a way, like if you do that, you'll close way more deals, you get way less BS, you get less people to think about. Does that kind of make sense?
100%, yes. No, that's definitely good, and I'll do this process, definitely.
What else?
Yeah, honestly, that's literally it.
Here's the big numbers I want you to walk away with, okay? So the first thing, like here's your to-dos for homework. Optimize the funnels, right? So that's just you testing. And again, do you have to do this? No, you don't. Your shit's working. But if you want to scale to 100K and beyond, you might want to do it now.
Yep.
That's your decision. You don't have to do that. The second thing is then you need to hire, right? Okay, spend more on ads. Okay, so how do you know when to spend more on ads? Your CAC should be 25% of your deal value. So yours right now is 360. Your lowest CAC is 1,200 at 45. It's like 2,000 at 7,500. So what does that mean? You need to spend more money. Your CAC is like your margins are insane. Yeah, that's great, but it's like you could spend a lot more, right? So that's how you kind of make those decisions. And then like when you're running a funnel, what people look at is they're like, well, what's your CTR and what's your lead cost and what's your app cost? It's like you work backwards. So what I look at first is what's your CAC. So if your CAC is 360, you're like, well, what do I do? It's like, well, spend more. Like, what do you mean? Like, you're good. Yep. If your CAC was like, let's say your CAC was like 2,500, then I'm like, okay, that's a little high. So what's your app cost? Now, if your app cost was high, I'm like, you probably have an issue with your follow-up system. If your app cost was low, I'm like, ooh, he might suck at sales. So I need to listen to your sales calls, right? Let's say your CAC was high and your app cost was low, but your lead cost was high. I'd be like, that's interesting. Let's look at the landing page and like, let's see what the ad is, right? Like it's all dependent, but remember, this number trumps all of those. This number trumps those. This one you get what I'm saying? It works backwards. So like I've had people before, they're like, my CTR is 0.3%. I'm like, what's your CAC? It's good. Shut the up, run more. It doesn't matter. Exactly. All that matters is this number, and then you work backwards. Okay, so this number trumps all these numbers. Application trumps all those. Lead cost trumps the ad, and then ad is the weakest. It doesn't mean much. Yeah. So for you to scale, because your goal, you said you want to come in at 25K and you want to get to 100K, right? What I would do if I was you is first is like, if you want the quickest result, if like you had a gun to your head and you want to make as much money in the next 30 days, the first thing you should do is spend more on ads. We're talking shortest to longest. Next thing you're going to want to do is hire, right? And then optimize the funnels last, because at the end of the day, like that's the easiest thing to do. The things that are going to bottleneck you the most is this. Without spending more, you will never scale. You can hire the best talent and the best funnels, you'll never scale. After you spend more, then the next issue is going to be this, and then this will be the next issue. So if you had to do least to most important to least important, this is most important to lease. And then in terms of optimizing, every time you're looking at your funnels, just look at these numbers. And that's it. It's that simple. And then as the business gets bigger, it's more important that your CAC stays under 25% because you're getting bigger, right? And it will go up, but it's just, you could get up to maybe 50% CAC, but then your margins really start to drop. So the goal is like 25% or less. If you're like 30% or something, don't trip. But like if your CAC was, let's say like 4,000, it's like, bro, it's $7,500. It's not enough money unless your LTV's nuts, which is also why you want to have 8+ month LTV, because if you did and you're charging 7,500, that means your LTV per client is like 22,000, so you can spend more on cost of acquisition because you know you're going to make it up on the back end.
Yeah, so I guess that's where the improving the product and the retention comes in.
Yeah, and the reason your product isn't good right now is because you don't have an account manager and you're doing too much stuff probably. And you even said you're not checking those numbers. It's like, if you don't, how can you measure what you're not tracking and improve it?
100%.
Anything else?
No, my last question is about like the ads, on like your process for consistently creating like new ad formats and stuff, for fighting the frequency sort of effect of everything. And yes, like how do you think of when it comes to starting to plan different ad creatives, or do you just vomit different ideas? Or
we just look at the biggest issues, and then like a lot of times we're looking at two things. We're looking at quality, and then we're really just looking at quality. That's it. So for example, if we're getting a lot of bad quality, then we usually will try to think, what are higher level problems the leads will have? So like that takes me more to like ads. Like part of why we started doing this is like it makes great ads, right? So it's like sales, hiring, team, whatever. That's usually where our head will go. It's also like just thinking of the biggest issues. So like usually when we do ads, it's like, are you this type of person with this problem, who wants this solution? I don't really like, in terms of like when my team asks now, my media buyers will ask me when they need new ads because they're like, hey, these ads are not working as well, we want new ones. But in terms of like the creative, they usually will tell me like what the angle is they want. That's based on the ad data and like what's working. And so they'll be like, hey, make an ad on sales, or like make an ad on this, and then I'll just like create one. And if you want them to be really good, like you can always type them out first and use a teleprompter, right? Because obviously like when you type stuff out and it's not on the fly, it's going to be more concise, but you don't have to do that. I don't know if I answered the question, but like now it's like my team will be like, hey, we need these types of ads. And usually what we're trying to do is like focus on getting better quality, because we get tons of leads. It's just the biggest issue we usually get is like if they're too beginner, right? Like we want higher level leads. Like in a perfect world, we'd like guys who are making what you're making or higher. We don't want beginners, because beginners come in and they're the hardest ones to get results for because they have the least amount of skills. Guys like you, it's easier because the stuff I told you today, you could probably go implement it. If you're a beginner and I told you that, you would be like, you'd be clueless. You're like, whoa, funnel, opt-in page, ad? Does that make sense? Did that answer the question, or is it off base though?
No, yes, it definitely does. No, I like focusing on quality, like I guess calling them out, making sure that you're calling out the right people.
Yeah, right? So it'd be like, hey, are you a personal trainer who's working 12 hours or more in the gym and you want to make at least 10K a month? Like it's like you want to cut right to the chase, and then you just give them the solution. So like a lot of times what I even see works best is just super direct ads. Like that's what I've seen. Like don't be afraid. I think the biggest thing I've learned too is like don't be afraid to give away everything on your ads, because most people can't implement it. So just like give it all away. Be like, this, if you're a real estate professional and you want to do wholesale, this is exactly what you do. And if you want to see more info, like, but you just tell them everything, because most people, they don't know how to implement it anyways.
Yeah, and that attracts the...
And it attracts high quality leads. Like,
for sure.
Like we had a kid today who I was like, how'd you find out about me? He's like, oh, I saw your video with this guy. And he's like, yeah, I saw your video with Ben. I was like, oh, sick. And then he was like, I wanted to get on the video. I was like, great. So it was like, I'm just giving away super high level content, and it's going to bring higher level people.
Awesome. I really, really appreciate this.
Yeah, of course, man. Thanks for coming. He's going to ask you a couple questions, and then I'll come back.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll take a couple pics and we'll wrap up. Hopefully that was helpful, dude.
Yeah, it was incredibly helpful. You have an idea, and yeah, from here it's implementing and taking action.
Yeah, and it's like, it's easy. Like the thing is like, you've already done most of the hard work. It's just do more. Dude, scaling is not complex. It's just doing more of the same faster. So people are like, what's the difference between 100,000 a month and $1 million? I'm like, you're just doing those things 10 times more. Like it's really, now it gets more complex because the team gets bigger and stuff like that, but it's the same. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, if that funnel works at, let's say 100 grand, could it work at $1 million? It's like, yeah, as long as it doesn't break. And like, there's more complexity to a degree, but it's not, it's just more of the same thing.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll be right back, bro.
Awesome. So I definitely got a lot of golden nuggets, like in terms of, I really got a plan. That's what I would say. Like I really got a plan on step by step what I should do in order for me to break through in every single like step of the way that I need to actually scale this up. So yes, I think what I got is a plan to have those breakthrough moments, and that will allow me to scale this even further. So yeah, we talked about sales, about hiring, about the back end, about ads, most importantly as well, on how to scale the client acquisition. And yeah, I feel like the Tanner style in terms of being like very straightforward really helps a lot, because I feel like I'm very maybe emotional, and he has like the other side of the spectrum, which is like, hey bro, like this is it, like just do it, and that's it, right? So I feel like I was really missing that sort of part of the perspective and spectrum to actually see things in a different way. It definitely surpassed my expectations, and there's a lot of questions that I didn't even have, but he uncovered them. So I think that's one of the craziest things about, this conversation, that I don't know what I don't know, right? And he actually uncovered those questions that I don't even know, and those ways of thinking and those frameworks that I was actually missing, but he can see them in a very, very clear way. And I think that's huge, because you come with specific questions, but that's not the actual, like you don't even know what's your real question, right? And he actually shows you what's the real question. Definitely starting the process of scaling the ads and the different funnels that we actually planned on. So starting like a heavy split test approach on the different types of funnels that I need to be running, and going a little bit more aggressive, definitely when it comes to spending on the ad side of the process, so that I can actually start having more scale for me to hire an account manager and a sales coach as well, and really like starting that process of scaling the ad spend so that I can actually start implementing the other pieces that I need to be doing in order for me to scale even further. I would say be ready for information that you didn't even expected, or you didn't even thought of initially. So, and also be ready to have a plan, right? Because Tanner will definitely give you a step-by-step plan in order for you to actually start taking action, because I feel like a lot of we get initially very foggy, like mentally. We see a lot of variables in the business and we can't really see things clearly, but when you have like an actual expert that is seeing your business like in a really black and white way, and he's able to actually give you those that framework and that plan that you need in order to break through and also break those limiting beliefs that you might be having as well. So I really appreciate this, Tanner. You have no idea, and it's way better than I expected, definitely, when it comes to you providing an actual plan and a huge analysis on the business overall. So appreciate that.